Good evening and welcome to the Away Days Man United season review part 2. And we've got a very special guest again. How are you doing today? Introduce yourself.
Hello, for those who do not know me, I am Angelina Kelly, podcast host, video presenter, journalist, all that jazz, basically.
All of that jazz. And what's most important for yourself is that you're a Man United fan. So we're going to talk about Man United. Just give a brief overview of how you thought the season went.
I think all things considered, I was actually looking at my Premier League predictions. I was going to be happy if we got into the top 4. So I think, now don't get me wrong, had the likes of Liverpool delivered, had Chelsea performed, how they've performed in the second half of the season, how they performed, if they would have performed that same way consistently, I think we would have definitely been in trouble. But I was pretty happy with the Premier League on the whole. The fact that we, at the end of the day, you can sit there and say, Liverpool weren't good enough, Chelsea weren't good enough, but we came second to a very, very, very good Manchester City side that we had no chance of beating, if we're being realistic. So, I was pretty chuffed with that. Obviously, we got to a Europa League final, didn't actually win it. And, you could say that we let ourselves down in the cup, obviously going out to City and to Leicester. But on the whole, I was pretty happy with it, to be honest. I thought it could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, just to pick up on what you said, it's crazy that, everyone's gonna say it's a bad season because you didn't win a league. You spent a bit of money, but not the same amount that Chelsea or Man City have spent. Liverpool for the past 2 seasons have just been amazing, but obviously, like you said, they had a drop off. But that's football in general. Leicester picked up on it when everybody else was dropping points, and they went on and won the league. So, I think in that respect, Ole should probably be celebrated that he's got you guys to finish second. But at the same time, there has been some games and some things that he's done which he needs to be held accountable for. We're going to get onto the final and things that everybody saw that he could have done, but he didn't do. But let's just start about the first half of the season. In the first half of the season, I think it was around January the 15th, you guys went top of the league. Now, it's the first time that you went top of the league since 2013. I think you briefly went top of the league in 2015, but it was for like 3 hours until Leicester won their game. And so he got you to the top of the league. At that point, did you ever believe, because I was on Twitter and I've got loads of Man United friends and they were all singing 21 in 21, and it was just like, I just didn't want this to happen. I didn't want Man United to win the league. But at one stage, I thought this could actually happen. Did you ever believe it could happen?
I'm a little bit of a pessimist, to be honest. So a lot of people around me, especially kind of like Christmas time when I was back in the UK, so many people were like, oh my God, 21, like we're going to win, blah, blah. And I was like, no. A little part of me, there was maybe 5% of me that thought, you know what, we could give this like a real good go. And I was excited for it, but I was realistic in that, as we've seen as the season's gone on, people catch up at the end of the day and you're going to slip up. I think it was Sheffield United that we ended up losing against, a game that you should be winning. And I personally feel like if you're slipping up in those games, which Manchester United did consistently throughout the season, slipping up against the teams lower down the table that should be a quick box ticked, job done kind of situation. No disrespect for those lower teams, but if you are wanting to be Premier League champions, that's got to be kind of like, your bread and butter. What you can just go into a game, you know what you've got to do, you get the job done. So the fact that we were losing those games was probably more disappointing than some of the big games that we lost, to be honest.
Yeah, you lost to us, but you did beat Man City, didn't you, this season?
Yes, that was a highlight. We beat them in the derby. Which was great. Definitely a highlight of the season, alongside the Champions League final. Seeing certain people cry on TV, even though we didn't get to the Champions League final. I'll be bitter. I'll be petty. Did I enjoy seeing Sergio Aguero cry? Maybe a little.
You know what? Of all the players that I didn't want to see cry, he would have probably been the one person I didn't want to see cry, because I think he's one of those players that you find it hard to hate. But I was watching it and I was like, who do you really want to win in this match? Like, I don't know. I just didn't want either to win. If it could have just ended in a draw and both of them share the trophy.
You know what? I was kind of jokingly saying that, but for people that might now think like, oh, she's just typical Reg, hate City. I actually did a video for work talking about 7 reasons why City would win. I thought this was their year. Like, I was really backing them. I thought, you know what? Good for them. This is looking at it as a football fan, this was the final piece of the puzzle for them.
Mm-hmm.
So go and do it 100%. But in true City and true Guardiola fashion, you know, I personally felt like going into it was theirs to lose, and that's exactly what happened in my opinion.
It was, and then I don't know why he gets a bit crazy in the big matches, and to go into that match and just not play a defensive midfielder was just like, you was just asking to lose.
With the quarterfinals and the semi-finals, he kind of did what he should have done and got those wins.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he then, I thought, you know what, he's over this. He's not going to do these wacky starting 11s that we've never seen before. He's learned his lesson. No, he was just gearing up for that mess of a final.
I could kind of see where Arteta gets his stupidness from now, because they both just, I don't know, you have a mentality, or you have a way of winning, and then you change it in the most important games of the season. It just doesn't make sense to me. But were you happy with your defense this season? Because there's been quite a bit of, obviously, Eric Bailly was in and out of the squad. I think Maguire's got a lot more stick than he deserves. I think I've been one of those people to give him stick, but I don't think he deserves it. I just find it fun winding up Man United fans. Luke Shaw has been amazing, probably the best left back in the league this season. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, how do you feel about him? Because I'm just not convinced. A lot of money for somebody that slide tackles. That's all I see from him. Are you convinced by him, or are you still not decided yet?
You know what? I've got a lot of time for Wan-Bissaka. I feel like the fact that he's not been with the club that long, he is still young. You can argue the fact that obviously there are a lot of right backs for England, but you could argue the fact that Southgate's never even given him a chance. Maybe that's his favouritism, or maybe it is the fact that he's perhaps not good enough. I think he's definitely got the potential. Yeah. I think we've seen it with Manchester City. But you know, using them, this is the example I always use when I'm talking about him. You know, there were periods of games last season when Sterling was having a very good run, that Wan-Bissaka completely took control. There was a couple of times where he definitely learned his lesson with Sterling, shall we say, but he kind of did learn the lesson in that there'd then be spells of the game where you forgot he was even on the pitch because he had him completely in his pocket. So that to me says that it's there. I think he just needs to work on it. And to be honest, considering the right backs that we've had, the ins and outs, not really having anybody solid in that position, I think on the whole, it's just good that we have somebody in that position now. And we can then, that's somebody that can then build in that position and get stronger and get better and learn and adapt, rather than signing people here and there and it doesn't work out and, you know, it's wasting money and wasting time. We've got somebody now who I think is definitely the future right back at Manchester United. I think he just needs a little bit more time.
And do you think a lot of that's down to what's in front of him? Because obviously you've got Fred and McMuffin in front of him. Plus, you don't have a natural right winger. So Rashford getting back or Greenwood getting back isn't as fair on him, because I don't think they really track back like a natural right winger would do. And you don't have a natural defensive midfielder that will cover for him if he goes forward, or cover or actually just help protect him. So I think that goes against him, because on the other side it seems to work a lot better with Shaw. Yeah. Let's get onto your midfield. Are you happy with any? If you take Bruno out of the equation, are you happy with any of your midfielders?
Probably not. I feel like we're definitely lacking that kind of defensive midfielder. Of course, we have Nemanja Matic, great player, but he's not got the legs anymore. You know, you can maybe get him for half a game. I feel like when Donny van de Beek came in, there was this discussion that he can also play this kind of defensive role. At the end of the day, without going into too much depth about him, it's not worked. I'm not really too sure why he's being signed if they're not going to even give him the chance. I don't really see where he fits in because he does kind of play. We've seen him play with Ajax, kind of that Bruno Fernandes role at times. So I'm not too sure where Ollie would think he would fit in. And I'm not too sure why he hasn't actually given him the chance to fit in as well. There's no excuse as to why he's not got enough game time. I think it's a little bit embarrassing for the club because, you know, the rumours were that Edwin van der Sar, obviously, at Ajax, had kind of convinced Donny van de Beek. There were a lot of people interested in him. He kind of said to him, go there, they'll look after you. And he's gone there and it's been an absolute hot mess. And it's definitely embarrassing. And the only thing I can hope is that maybe something's been going on behind the scenes that we don't know about. I've not heard any rumours about it or any whispers, so I doubt that, but maybe there is.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that maybe he can go, but you know, it's really hard because you look, I'm hoping that he goes and has a really good Euros, but the man who was brought in at Ajax, Davy Klaassen, to kind of take over from him, has taken over from him at Ajax and has taken over for him with the national team as well. So he's going to struggle really to get his game time, I think. Hopefully he does. But yeah, again, looking at the rest of the midfield, I don't think I think Pogba sometimes doesn't necessarily always fit in. I think we've seen him kind of playing more towards the left at times, which does seem to work. I wish we would maybe see that a little bit more. Fred and McTominay, very good players, but are they consistently good players? And are they the type of players that are going to win you a Premier League? Maybe if I had to pick one, I'd probably side more with McTominay just because at least he can score the goal. You know what I mean?
I think it just gives you a bit more energy as well. And I think you need those sort of players in the squad. Maybe if he's not starting, but you just need someone that's going to come on off the bench and just give you 100%. I was actually looking at the Donny stats and I don't know where all of these games come from. They must have all just been substitute appearances, but he played 36 games this season, which is one less.
How many minutes of those?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's probably just like silly 2 minutes here and there because
we know Ollie likes to make a late club.
He played 37 at Ajax last season, so it's one less game, but I'm guessing they're all substitute appearances for the last 4 or 5 minutes. And I think it's one of those things where did he actually sign him? Because if he signed him and he's treating him like this, then for me, he's just bang out of order. But did he not sign him and then trying to prove a point by not playing him? Again, don't play with someone's emotions like that. Don't bring him in and then just not play. So I think whichever way you look at it, it just looks bad. So the second half of the season, if we're going to be fair, Man City put on a ridiculous run. So even if Man United kept up, I think you finished, was it 9 points behind or 8 points behind? So you weren't too far off, but
points wise we weren't, but quality wise we're a million miles if we're being brutally honest.
But is that just how much of that is down to him or the players, or do you think you have the quality players to actually challenge? Because I think I see quite a lot of talking and Man United should be up there. Yeah, they should be because they're Manchester United. But with this group of players, do you think he's done all he could do with this group of players? Because I personally think he did, to be fair. And I think he done more than what I was expecting from that group of players. So what do you think?
You look at his last, the last 2 seasons, his 2 full seasons that he's actually been at the helm. We finished in the top 4. I know it's a long time ago, but we beat PSG, we beat Leipzig. Fair enough in the group stage of the Champions League. Maybe they weren't fielding the best teams. I get we can create arguments for it. We still performed very well, minus that final in the Europa League. Yes, you can argue it's a second degree kind of European competition. I don't really care. You're still playing, other teams in Europe that have been performing very well as well. I feel like I get what you mean in that. Do I look at that team? I look at that team and I don't necessarily think you're a star, you're a star, you're a star. Do I see players that arrived and I expected to potentially be stars? Perhaps. But I don't go through that team like I go through a Manchester City team or a Chelsea team or, you know, even, you know, a Bayern Munich team or, you know, so many different teams that realistically, if you want to be at the top of your game, these are the, you know, players you're going to be competing against. These are the teams you're going to be competing against. I look at those teams and I think, yeah, star here, star there, blah, blah, blah. Atletico Madrid as well, you know, and I don't see that with Manchester United. But I agree with you that when you look at some of the players and you look at the roster as a whole, and you compare it to other rosters, I think they've definitely done well. I kind of agree with you in that this is maybe as far as this team can go, and this summer transfer window is arguably his most important.
Yeah, I think it's as far as his team can go, and I think it's as far as he can go as well. If I'm honest, I like him, and I think he gets a lot of stick for, which I don't think half of it is his fault. I mean, in game, like there's in-game things that we all know, like just not making substitutions and stuff like that. That's all on him. But I think the issue that comes with someone like him is that he's played for Man United and he's played for the best Man United, the best version of Man United. So I don't know if he just automatically expects that players that come there that they can actually motivate themselves to be the best. And I think obviously that was coming from Alex Ferguson, but I think that was also coming from people like Keane, coming from people like Ferdinand, coming from, you can name Giggs, Scholes. They just wanted to be the best. When I look at them, I don't look at the players there and I think, do you actually, like I look at Greenwood and I can see a fighter in him. I can see a winner in him. I can see a fighter in McTominay, Maguire, but the rest of them, sometimes I look at Pogba and I think you are actually the best player in your position in the world, but you don't play like it. Like how often do you say you walk off the pitch and think, oh, okay, like Pogba's just been amazing today. Fernandes looks like he's always wants to be the best, but some of them I just look at him and just think they're just happy playing for Man United. And I think he tried to change that mentality, but I don't think he can, and I don't know if it's just a modern day player as well. Like, money just enough now? Is that just enough for some of these players? Obviously, you're in there a bit more than I am, so you know how players react to things like trophies and stuff. Like, do players really care about trophies that much? Because I've watched Arsenal this season and in the Europa League, and like you're saying, it's a second rate, but it's going to get you into the Champions League to be in it. And then you go into a final and perform, we went into a semi-final and performed like the way we performed. And then you guys walked into a final and performed the way you performed. I just don't think that would have happened with the great Arsenal or the great Man United teams, because I think they just had so many winners on the pitch, and I just don't see it right now at Man United. And I think that's where, like you're saying, this is the biggest transfer window you guys would have had in a good since Ferguson's left, to be honest. This is going to be the biggest transfer window. So what are you hoping for? Obviously, you want Sancho, but on top of that, what do you want to see come in?
I think it's interesting what you're saying about, like, you know, teams of late probably had more of that desire. But I think the other thing is that teams of late were used to winning. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, these Arsenal teams we're talking about, these Man United teams, winning, there was no other option. So I think when you've had a lull and you've had that downtime, it's very hard to, as much as Manchester United does have this history and legacy, where are the trophies you're pointing to say, listen, this is what we're used to winning.
Yeah.
So a team like Real Madrid, it works because as much Real Madrid have managed to consistently keep the teams churning over and keep winning the trophies. Yes, fair enough, this year they haven't for the first time since I think the 2009-2010 season. A club like that, you can get that mentality of, listen, we win, this is what we do, fix up and get used to it. But I think because we have had such a lull, it is difficult to incite that in players. But I think players definitely, you know, one thing about football is, you know, they've definitely got their, you know, an ego, to be honest. You want to win. You don't want to look like a fool. You want to impress for your national team. You want to impress also, I think, you know, for your sponsors. for potential other deals, etc., etc. So I think it's still important, but I think it's definitely more difficult to instill that that kind of idea. And like the comment that you just pulled up there, you know, Ollie should be doing better managing. He also did not get the players he wanted last season. Definitely agree with that. The club is not backing him enough on transfers. I definitely agree with. I feel like without getting too much into the politics of things, we all know the situation at Manchester United, whether people want to go home and do their own research. You know, I've had friends, City fans, Spurs fans, kind of messaging me being like, well, why is everyone so annoyed with the Glazers? Like, why is everybody so vexed? Like, what, just because you've not won a few trophies? And it's like, this has been going on for like 16 years. Like, I remember when the Glazers bought Manchester United. I remember my granddad, die-hard Manchester United fan, God rest his soul, my granddad turning and saying, this is bad. This is not going to end well. Fans were not happy back then. Before they'd even had a chance to do anything, people weren't happy. When you go and do your research, I think it then becomes a lot more understandable why people are upset. But whether you're upset, whether you agree with it, whatever people's opinions are on it is fine. But at the end of the day, the writing is on the wall that the attitude of certain powers that be give the impression that perhaps not everybody is, you know, reading from the same hymn sheet, shall we say. And I think it's it's a very difficult situation. And as much as you can sit there and you can blame Ollie, because, yeah, there are times when he doesn't make substitutions. And when we're playing more defensive teams, we don't necessarily see United have that urge to run forward like we were used to seeing in the Fergie days, all that type of stuff. Completely agree with. But at the same time, you know, you're fighting a losing battle. And at the end of the day, players and managers want to play for Manchester United. They didn't necessarily sign up for all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes as well. You know, and it was really interesting. I was actually talking to Ray Winston the other week about it. And he was saying, you know, I was talking about the European Super League, and he was saying, you know, really we should be looking at the owners that have decided to make this happen. You can't necessarily look at managers and players and be deducting points from them and all this type of stuff, because at the end of the day, it's not their fault. They didn't sign up for this kind of thing. He was discussing things like that, which was quite interesting. And I have to agree with that. So, yeah, definitely you can argue the club isn't backing him enough. I would probably agree with that.
Just a brief about the Super League. Were you totally against it? Did you have enough information about it to be in or against it? Because for me, I don't think we had enough information. It was just, at the end of the day, it was just for the richer people to get richer and the lesser people to get obviously poorer. But it still doesn't take away the fact that FIFA are corrupt, UEFA are just dodgy, the Premier League are just dodgy, and other, you know, the broadcasters and stuff that are paying for all of these things. I mean, they don't do. It just was weird that everybody was caring about the smaller clubs, but essentially they don't care about the smaller clubs, because if they did, then when we, you know, sign up for Sky or BT or whatever, every team would have the same amount of games. Everything would be fair. The money would be distributed the same equally, but it isn't. So regardless, they only care about this superficial Big Six, which I don't even know who that is anymore.
I don't know. The Big Six
you know, it's just whoever. I don't know if it's whoever finishes in the top 6 or whatever at the time. The whole thing was just very, very. It was just weird. It just happened so quickly, and I think. I don't know if it was just a move by these top teams to get more money from UEFA, because all of a sudden it's kind of worked in their favor that UEFA are changing certain rules and stuff. There's no more financial fair play, which none of the teams were sticking to anyway. So it was all a bit suspicious. But were you totally against it, or did you just not know about it? How did you feel about it?
I think it's a really tough one to answer, but I just know for me personally, at the end of the day, the most important thing about football is that fans are looked after and that football clubs have the best interests of fans. And I know for me personally, being a Manchester United fan, there are a lot of things that need to be discussed, talked about, fixed. that go on at the club, whether, you know, many different things. I could be here all night talking about it. Those are the things that should be prioritized, not necessarily all this type of stuff that was going on, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah, because it was a bit weird. Because you know, everyone was saying for the fans and all of that, but I just thought, all right, it was just. I don't know where I stood with it, to be honest. Like some days I was like, this is just crap, and then some days I was like, are we like, what are we really against? I mean, at the end of the day, do you really want to go to Stoke on a Thursday night when it's all raining, or do you want to rather?
I've never been to Stoke on a Thursday night. Maybe I will.
I've been there on a Saturday. But would you rather that or watch them versus your team versus Real Madrid? I don't know, and I just don't think. I think the clubs did try to be cheeky and say they wanted to stay in their leagues as well, which they knew would have just not happened. But I think it was done. I think it was done more for them to try gain more power with UEFA and more power within the Premier League. Which did it work? We don't know yet. It could have backfired, but all of a sudden it's being brushed under the carpet. So for me, that just says it was a bit suspicious anyway, because all of a sudden it's just brushed under the carpet and no one seems to even remember it happened. So yeah, let's get on to the let's get on, because I'm just wearing the time. Let's start talking about the cup final. Or let's talk about Ole a bit actually, and the cup final, because it all blends in. Do you think he knows what he's doing?
You asked if you would have asked me almost a week ago, I probably would have said no. I'm sure, you know, he's taken a few tests. He's got a few coaching badges. I'm sure to a degree he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, to a degree, yeah.
I guess sometimes, you know, with managers that don't necessarily have that experience, maybe, you know, they don't know as much as you've been as a player, you know, in cup finals, etc. If you've not managed cup finals, then to a degree, you're maybe not aware of, you know, certain things that come with it. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's probably the difference between when you talk about an inexperienced manager like Solskjaer and an inexperienced manager like Zidane. Zidane was primed and prepped for that role. He had been within the club. Obviously, the club had been very successful, but he had been within the club. He had learned every single moving part. Solskjaer hasn't necessarily had that as much as he's been. Yes, he was working in the youth systems and stuff like that at Manchester United. That's not the same as, I feel like, what Zidane was probably doing, and what Raul is doing now at Real Madrid as well. And so, yeah, I feel like a lot of people sometimes make those comparisons of, oh, you know, player turned manager with no experience. Look what Zidane's done. Look what Solskjaer's done. I don't think he's necessarily been in that same environment. So I think there's always 100% going to be weaknesses. But, you know, again, yes, people can sit and argue that this was only group stage of the Champions League. But for me, you know, a manager and a team, not the best team, not the best Manchester United team, but if we can go out there and we're beating PSG and Leipzig, I don't care, because I don't care what people are going to say. It's, oh, maybe it wasn't the strongest team. There were still some decent players in all of those fixtures.
No, but I mean,
to go and win those games, that shows to me there's something there.
I mean, he's beaten PSG for the last 2 seasons, because didn't Rashford score like a last-minute penny or something last year as well? So I don't like this season. I think what probably annoyed everybody is that he had 3 games to get 1 point.
Yeah, and then, you know, there was the Besiktas in the group in the Champions League. You know, we lost to them. It's things like that I think wind people up.
How much do you put this on players? Because obviously the manager, essentially, he picks the team. But this is what I was saying. I know you're saying they need to be winning to know how to deal with these situations, but I still think you've got World Cup winners and stuff in this team.
Yeah.
You should know you shouldn't need the motivation to beat Villarreal. Like,
I agree.
You're good enough. And again, I think Ole takes a lot of the blame because, but you've got 5 substitutions, and then you have 6 once it goes into extra time. You have 6 substitutions, and the substitutions that he decided to make was like he kind of just thought, you know what, they're trying to play for penalties, so let's do the same. And I think what annoys me and what annoys other obviously what annoys you Man United fans is that we should not be comparing this guy to Alex Ferguson, because that's just a stupid thing to do. But he's been a part of that team, and he should know that if you're trying to win a game, you just fling on attacking players. You don't bring on Fred. You don't. That's not how you win the game.
But who did you have to bring on? You look at that sub bench, and it was not the best bench at the end of the day.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Not that I agree with the subs and the situation at all. I don't agree with it, but I think and that's where you look at this Manchester United team and think, and you look at them and you do compare them to the likes of Manchester City and even Chelsea to an extent. That is squad depth. We don't have that kind of depth.
I mean, you've got Cavani, Greenwood, Rashford. That's it, really, haven't you? As in forwards. Oh, Martial was injured, wasn't he? So yeah, like you say, you don't really have the depth. So yeah, you're right in the sense that you didn't have anyone really to bring on. You had Ahmad, but he's only young, so we don't know what he could have done. But it seems like it's been a common theme throughout the season that he's lacked in-game management. I think we go back to, did Fred get sent off in the Champions League in one of the games?
Yeah.
He should have been sent off for the original challenge anyway, but he stayed on, got booked, and then got booked again.
It was a shambles.
Yeah, those sorts of things is what people are annoyed about. But I think a lot of players are getting away with murder, not just at Man United, but at Arsenal, at Liverpool. There's so many players just getting away with murder that you're just not turning up. You think you've made it, and you're just not turning up week in, week out. And I think, again, a little bit is to do with the manager, but I think if you just have natural born winners in your team, then they just don't settle for that. And I think if I take Maguire out of the team, I don't see who is that natural born winner apart from Fernandes. I mean, he cries a bit, but who else would you say is a natural born winner in that team?
Edison Cavani for me.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Got to be Edison Cavani. Yeah. I feel like Rashford has it in him. I think, like what we talked about before we went live, his speech that he made with BT Sport, very interesting, very emotional, emotionally charged. And yeah, that kind of showed me, as much as there were parts of it that I don't agree with, that showed me real passion and care. But, regarding like match winners and stuff like that, apart from Cavani, who else are you going to look to? And Fernandes, but Fernandes, you didn't see him in that game.
I think
Greenwood was arguably the best player on the pitch.
He came off, but he looked tired. I did agree, but I probably would have kept him on because I think he's the only one in that team, like you say, apart from Cavani, that if he's in front of goal, I would actually think I'm more shocked if he doesn't score. Greenwood, and that's how good I think he is. But yeah, let's get on to that Rashford interview, because it was so emotional, and I think the backlash that came after, again, I think a lot of it's to do with the colour of his skin. It's not. It's not.
100%.
There was a massive Man United account. I don't even know if you still follow them, but they had like 124,000 followers on Twitter, and he basically was saying that Rashford was bringing up the whole racism thing to cover how bad he played in that final. And
that's why people bring it up.
And I was just like, there were 10 other players on that pitch that were equally as bad. Like you say, apart from Greenwood, not many other players on that pitch could come away with their head held high. Probably Shaw as well. But it was so emotional. What didn't you agree with his speech? What did you agree with the whole talking about injuries and stuff? Was that a bit of a... or do you think he was just trying to prove a point?
I think he's trying to prove a point. I mean, for me, I wouldn't bring something like that up, because I think you're just opening the team up for even more criticism. Because what I was then expecting, I'll be honest, I've not been keeping tabs on Manchester United articles, but what I was then expecting was an attack on the backroom staff. why are so many players injured? Why has all of this been going on? You know, I just felt like it left them open for a little bit of criticism. That was the only thing I was kind of cringing when he was talking about it. Apart from that, yeah, he's trying to show that they're making sacrifices. He's trying to say that this team care because they're playing with injuries. But if we had a squad with depth, people probably wouldn't have to play with injuries. And it's one of those, and it's what Paul Scholes talked about after the speech that he gave, you know, that's great. That's great to hear. And I'm really glad that Solskjaer was extremely honest when he said, no, this season has not been a success. I rated him for being that upfront and honest. And that's one thing that I do like about him is that I tend to, some things are smoke and mirrors with him, but when you're asking him straight up questions like that, I do feel like he's pretty honest. And I feel like the only times that I get the smoke and mirrors vibe from him is when he's trying to shield his players, which is something that I've spoken about before. I personally rate that. I think that certain things have been going on with Mason Greenwood. He's alluded to his mentality not being right, his mental health, etc. I think to have backed the player and to have supported him and clearly kept things behind closed doors, I rate that. Do I look at other managers and think that they would have done the same? Probably not. So there are certain things that I definitely rate him for with that. But I just feel like the whole Rashford situation, he didn't deserve the abuse. I think that he was very brave to speak the way that, you know, he did. I get the intention of it. And I think it was some great words, very powerful words, like we've said, but it's words.
Yeah.
And this is my issue with it, is that I rate him. I think it's great. But at the same time, I needed a little bit more honesty from him. As much as he's bigging up these players and he's saying, we are sacrificing, we care, we want to work hard, we want to win trophies. And, you know, the interviewer asked a great question, like, why do you believe that this team actually has what it takes? And he then went on to talk about the sacrifices, etc. But it's like, I wanted him to be a little bit more real and just be like, listen, I know this isn't great, and I'm sat here and I'm telling you all this. There's clearly a disconnect between what happens in training and why this group of players believe in themselves so much. And that's great that they have that belief, but why is that not being mirrored on the pitch? And there's some kind of disconnect, whether it's the players, whether it's Solskjaer, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm not a football coach, but there is definitely some kind of disconnect, and that's definitely what it showed me. But like I say, you know, props to him for speaking so honestly. I always love a bit of honesty. Maybe a little bit more honesty would have been good. But obviously, the aftermath was a disgrace on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think it was, at first, I really, really liked that whole speech. And then I listened to it again and I thought, that is very dangerous. Because what essentially you said there is that they were playing you even though they knew you were injured. And what does that say to anybody else that's a part of that team, is that an injured Marcus Rashford is better than a fully fit you.
Yeah.
So I feel like it kind of
left them open to criticism.
Yeah, it left these team. And I mean, I don't think anyone's ever going to be happy with Solskjaer. I think he could bring you the league, and I still don't think
there's always going to be haters.
Yeah, because I just feel like we've got to this stage now in football, and I think it's all to do with social media, where everyone just thinks that you have to have big names and big signings and big managers.
But the question I would put to Manchester United fans is, who are you bringing in? Because Zinedine Zidane, it is very, very obvious that he is waiting for the France national team job. Didier Deschamps' contract expires next year. There have been so many rumours in the Spanish media. He's waiting for that job. That's where he's heading next. You look at Antonio Conte, you know, he's walked away from a club with Inter Milan reportedly because transfers haven't gone the way that he wants them to. Currently at Manchester United, transfers don't go the way that you want them to. So is he actually going to be happy? Mauricio Pochettino, if I'm being completely honest, great that he's at PSG, but I don't personally feel like he is a big name because he's not won anything, if I'm being completely honest. I don't see a manager, you know, I thought Carlo Ancelotti going to Everton was absolutely fantastic. I thought, you know what? He's clearly viewing this as a long-term project. Everton are going to be up there competing in the top 6. He's jumped ship. He's back at Real Madrid. You know what I mean? So it's like, who are you? Somebody tell me, who is the manager available, actually available? Don't be silly saying Pep Guardiola, because it's not going to be Pep Guardiola. But who is actually a realistic signing that we could get, a manager, sorry, that we could get that is actually going to stay loyal to the club, going to be willing to put in a good few seasons. I'm not just talking about 1 or 2 seasons and leaving, at least a good solid 5 seasons to bring success to the club. I don't personally see anybody else out there who can actually do that I look at and think 100% they could definitely bring that. Unless you bring in Alex Ferguson out of retirement, I can't see anybody who's going to do that. So why not try and actually lift Solskjaer up and try and actually think, you know what, this is the cards we've been dealt. Let's try and actually give him a chance, which is why I personally feel like this is my opinion right now. We'll have to see what happens with the transfer window. We'll have to see what happens next season. If he brings it next season, then I'll be feeling good about it. If not, then it's a shame, but I still stand by my argument as to who realistically you're going to bring in that can fix the problem.
See, I mean, this is my argument in general for any of the teams, for Spurs looking for a manager, for people that want to replace Arteta, for your club now. It's not even about it's more about, does anybody want to join your team? As big as Man United are, big as Arsenal are, Spurs obviously are not that big, but as big as these clubs are, if everybody can see what's going on, if everybody can see that, let's face it, none of the managers since Ferguson has been backed, and they've all come out and said they didn't get the players that they wanted. So why would you go there and then put yourself in that situation? And the only people that are going to do it are the people that are like your Brendan Rodgers and people like that who have nothing to lose because they've never really had big players like that. But in terms of managers that have had big players, Mourinho just had an ego, so that's why he did it. He's gone away thinking he's done amazing at Man United. The rest of us will look at it and be like, okay, it was okay. He won a couple of trophies, but he's probably left and thought, I've done amazing here. But it just always goes back down to, 1, who's available. 2, does that person even want to manage your club? 3, is the team that he's at going to just let him go for pennies? Because that's what everybody thinks just happens. You just walk to the team and go, okay, we'll give you 2 million. Can we have your manager? It doesn't work like that. So I don't know who. I'm looking at it and I don't know who in the world could come in there and save Man United right now. And I think the best thing to do would just be to give Ole rolling contract. So I'll be like, just give him a year rolling contract. Don't give him a big 3-year contract because that's just silly. Because all that talk about giving him a 3-year contract for me is just silly. Just keep giving him a year rolling contract, and that way it gives both. If he wants to go, then he can go. If you've got your eyes on a manager that becomes available, then you can get him in. I don't think Ole is silly enough to think that this job's there forever for him just because of what he'd done for Man United. So for him, I want to see him do well. Also, I don't want to see you guys doing well, but I want to see him do well because I think he's just taken so much stick this season, which half of it isn't called for. Some of it is his fault, which if you're a manager of a club, you're going to get that, but some of it isn't his fault. So I'm hoping he does come through and do well for you guys. Just on to the last couple of bits now. We'll quickly go through your main 16 and we'll just say who would you sell, who would you keep. So We'll start with the goalkeepers. You've got Henderson and you've got De Gea. Are you keeping both, selling one, selling both?
I think that really does depend on what they want. Of course, there are reports that Dean Henderson wants to be first choice and will accept nothing less. Yes, could he potentially sign with another club that would probably give him the first team football? 100%. So I totally get where he's coming from. But in my opinion, sell both. Who are you bringing in? Tell me who you're bringing in. Like, I'm curious to know what goalkeepers are actually available. Not Oblak at Atletico Madrid, because why would he leave Atletico Madrid?
That's what everyone always says that. I'm like, why would he leave?
No disrespect to Keylor Navas, but he's no spring chicken. It's not like you're going to get another 10, 15 years out of him. I don't really know who we're replacing them both with. My only thing with Dean Henderson is that I just feel like he's asking for a hell of a lot considering his experience
It's
is
Sheffield
with
United.
Sheffield.
Yeah.
So I personally would keep both.
Yeah.
I feel like David De Gea over the years has done more good than bad. I am more Team De Gea than I get why other people aren't, but I think he's done more good than bad. So yeah, I'd keep both.
The thing is, I think the De Gea one is more for myself. Like being a goalkeeper, I think his one, I just can't see how any Man United fan can really, really want to sell him, just for the fact that for 3 or 4 years he was your best player, which is like for me, like it's quite silly that a goalkeeper is your best player and was your best player for, and he kept Man United in the top 4 for those years. So
exactly, and also the comment about Donnarumma that's come up. Gianluigi Donnarumma is not coming to Manchester United. If Barcelona and PSG are the clubs that he's dealing with, no disrespect to my team, Manchester United, but I just cannot see that happening personally.
I think PSG would. I think if he went to PSG, I think that would be a cop out on his part, to be honest, because you're only playing like 10 good games a season. Playing in the Champions League. So for me, personally, I think he would go to. I think
at the end of the day,
like Juventus or someone like that. I don't think
if he's exactly Juventus as well. Juventus need a goalkeeper. He's staying in Italy. If his agent is speaking to Barcelona, considering Barcelona have Marc-Andre ter Stegen, who seems to be a mainstay kind of keeper that they're not going to get rid of. If Mino Raiola is still negotiating with Barcelona about him being second in command to ter Stegen, I don't think. Those are the kind of levels that they're willing to go to. Whether they're going to come, unfortunately, down to Manchester United, I can't see that.
That's the thing. As much as everybody wants to laugh at Barcelona and Real Madrid for their money issues and things like that, they are still the two clubs that everybody wants to play for. So the chances of you signing for them only come around once in a lifetime. So if it is offered to most players, unfortunately, most players are going to go and play for Barcelona. So like he's gone, though, isn't he? I think he's already gone, isn't he? I think he already left.
The only, which is why I can't remember what his name is now.
Tom
Heaton, which is why he's potentially coming in, because obviously Lee Grant is reportedly going to be more of a coaching role. Romero, as far as I'm aware, he's already gone.
I think Tom Heaton's actually signed, hasn't he? So he said the other day, he said he wants to be
command.
He wants to fight to be number one. I was like, mate, you're 35 years old.
Yeah,
you're not fighting no one to be number one. But good on him. We know you're going to keep Wan-Bissaka, so we don't really need to talk about him. Centre backs, you've got Lindelof.
Got about 6,
Eric Bailly. Phil Jones, obviously. Yes,
Phil Jones needs to go. Luckily, Rocco has already gone.
Maguire,
I would keep Maguire. I think that Tuanzebe definitely has a lot of potential. Depending if he wants to stay there, I could understand him wanting to leave. I don't completely buy into the Lindelof-Maguire situation, if I'm being completely honest. As much as Lindelof has been okay this season on the whole, he wasn't great at the beginning of the season. I know that some people put him as our best player last season, which I can kind of understand, but on the whole, I'm not completely sold. And I also feel, Eric Bailly, at the end of the day, we've seen him make some pretty rash decisions, and he's injured all the time. I think it's time to potentially
he's just got a new contract, though, hasn't he?
This is the thing. It's like he's got a new contract, but me personally, I would, contracts aside, Man United can pay a king's ransom. But does Donnarumma want to go to Manchester United? This is the question. Why would we want a goalkeeper that doesn't want to be at the club? He's never mentioned Manchester United. There's never been any rumours about it. So unfortunately, I think you're just going to have to let the goalkeeper thing go.
Yeah, I think as well. I don't think Italians really enjoy the Premiership. I can't think of many. Like, there's obviously been Di Canio and Zola, but that was more because things didn't work out in Italy for them. Like I can't remember a top Italian player coming to England and staying for long. I remember Liverpool got what's his name, Aquilani, that used to play for Roma. But yeah, there's not many that come to England, so I personally just don't see. I don't, unless the only team I can see him joining is actually probably Chelsea, because obviously they're just going to have that buy of just winning the Champions League plus the money they could offer him. He will probably get a good 10, 15 million pound signing on fee plus base wages of 200, 3,000. So
what are you going to do, Mendy dirty like that?
Yeah, I think they would. I think they would. Left back, obviously, we don't need to talk about that because he's probably been the best left back in the Prem this season. Brandon, is it Brandon Williams?
Brandon Williams. Yeah, it's a shame about him because he was very much involved last season. But unfortunately, this is what happens. You've got to fight for your space, and maybe he's not done enough to fight for it. So, but I know people behind the scenes that know him. He's apparently a great lad, and hopefully he gets his chance. But I could also, I could respectfully understand if he decided he wanted to move on.
Yeah, I mean, you're Manchester United, and I don't think being a great lad is good enough anymore, is it? So, hopefully, he gets a move because I think he probably deserves it. In midfield, you've got Juan Mata. Stay or keep?
Juan Mata, you cannot disrespect Juan Mata. I think I've heard that obviously there have been rumours of him heading back to Spain if that's what he wants, definitely. Yeah. But I think we need to kind of make a decision of we're either going to the backroom staff or we're moving on. I would really like him to stay in some capacity at Manchester United because interviews that I've watched with him, documentary on him that I've watched, very interesting man with a lot of knowledge to share. He's achieved a lot. I'm
going to be surprised if Chelsea try to take him back to do the same thing.
Yeah, I can't. I think definitely. Not that I feel like he needs to go because I've got a problem with him, but just I think that the time's up. He's not really played that much this season. We can't really keep him as another person to just come on for half an hour, 5 times in the season. So stay maybe in the back room or potentially move on for, his last season in La Liga, perhaps.
All right, Paul Pogba.
You know what? The Pogba situation is such a tough one. For the first time this summer, I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens after the Euros, but for the first time, we've not had a Pogba monologue of alluding to wanting to go and find some mysterious new challenge and all this type of stuff. We've not had that yet. So it seems like he's staying. I mean, at the end of the day, I think Pogba will stay because where else is he going to go? Obviously, Max Allegri has just been appointed back at Juventus. There have been rumours that they perhaps could want to get him, but Juventus are trying to cut their books a little bit. Obviously, so many clubs are to do with the coronavirus pandemic, which is why potentially Ronaldo could be departing, why there's been rumours of Paulo Dybala, etc. So I feel like I can't really see the move back to Juventus. Real Madrid, that ship has well sailed. They have got bigger fish to fry. So, I feel like he's going to stay. It's frustrating because if you asked me at the beginning of the season, get rid, can't be dealing with it. But I feel like there's something there. He has got talent. There is something there.
We know he has, but it's...
But at the same time, if it's not working, if you're telling me that there are other midfielders we could get, then let him go.
I think the issue with Paul Pogba is that if you're going to have someone like Paul Pogba, you have to build a team around him, which has never been done since you've paid, was it 90-something million pound for him, and you haven't once built a team around him. It doesn't make sense. So you've basically just wasted that money. As for Juventus, like you're saying, the chances of him going back there are very slim. But what they've done is that they signed loads of players on free transfers. So they've given them ridiculous wages, and now they're paying for it. So I don't, like you said, there's nowhere for him to go. So I think, he will be there at Man United. Next two, we've got Fred and McTominay. I know you would want to keep McTominay. What about Fred? Are you convinced about Fred?
I'm not completely mad at him. He frustrates me at times, but then he does show good moments. So I would keep him for squad depth. I mean, I'm not thinking about full numbers here with Manchester United. I'm still expecting us to be able to bring some midfield players in, so I would have him more as a squad player.
Makes sense. Fernandes obviously going to keep. Diallo just signed him, so there's no chances of him going. Daniel James,
Squad player for me.
squad player. I haven't seen one person that wants to keep him. Like I just see so much.
It's a shame because he's definitely got the speed, and I think it'll be interesting to see how he does this summer in the Euros. But yeah, it's a tough one. But for me, I'd keep him as a squad player. Free Donny Freeman.
I think this guy's just on a wind up, isn't he? We've got Matic. I think it's got to be time for him to go in here.
Yeah, I think more just an age thing, not necessarily
just
an
age.
Just an age
Definitely
thing,
just an age thing. Who else haven't we mentioned in this squad? Donny, obviously we mentioned him earlier. What do you think?
They're not going to be selling him. I think he's going to be there for another season, and I would like to see what he can actually bring to the table and for him to be given a chance.
And then on to the forwards. I'm actually looking at your squad list, and I'm actually thinking it's quite a bad team.
It's sparse.
I mean, the 11 is very good,
but the squad itself is sparse. In my opinion,
is very, very sparse. And up front, we've got Cavani, Martial, Rashford, and Greenwood. Which would you sell? I wouldn't sell any of them, but would you?
Martial needs to go.
Oh, I forgot.
At the end of the day, he was brought to this club to be the next big thing. For whatever reason, it's not worked. Yes, last season, him and Rashford were having a grand old time of it, but he has proven that he has not been able to deliver. Before Cavani arrived, he was the striker. Have a go. You have got game after game after game after game to prove yourself. He's not managed to do it. And I think, how much longer are we going to sit on this merry-go-round? I would rather get rid. I don't know how much money you'd even get for him. I don't even know who would take him, if I'm being completely honest.
No,
but
I think we'd have quite a few takers.
It's not working. You've got to be brutal sometimes.
I saw this stat come up today about your top scorers for the last 5 years. It was Ibrahimovic, Lukaku, then Martial, then Rashford, and then this season Bruno Fernandes. But not one of them got 20 goals. I think the highest was 19, and I think that, if I'm right, it was Lukaku. No, Lukaku got 16. I can't remember which one got 19, and obviously Fernandes got 18 this season. That's a major problem for Man United. Major problem I know, obviously, before this season, Aubameyang had 2 good seasons with goal scoring, but if you don't have one striker that scores minimum of 20, and I think it's why Man United have to go after Harry Kane. I think if you can get Kane and Sancho, I think you've got enough to just not even worry about defense, because I just don't think anyone's going to get near your defense. Who do you think could come in and save this United team? How many players do you think, realistically? I think you need 4 players.
It's very difficult because obviously when you're saying things, you then automatically start thinking about the money and blah, blah, blah. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think Harry Kane is realistic. No, just if I'm thinking about the money.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think it's realistic. Would I love to have Harry Kane at the club? 100%. I know it's been rumoured before. I feel like Manchester City will probably have the edge if it came to a money battle, as much as Manchester City in the past have maybe walked away when prices have got a little bit too steep. They have got a very good team. This is probably, you could argue maybe 1 or 2 other areas they could improve, but this is the main area that they need to improve. They've done very well this season without having an out-and-out goal scorer, because Gabriel Jesus is not up to scratch. Aguero's had a mare. So they've done well this season, but I think they definitely do need a striker. And I just feel like if it came to a bidding war, as much as there have been rumours of City wanting Jack Grealish, I feel like their first £100 million signing will be Harry Kane. I feel like we are prioritising Sancho. I do see Sancho coming, definitely. I think that we need a defensive midfielder. And who exactly, I can't give you a full-on name that springs to my mind, but I think definitely somebody. And I would like to see, depending on what happens with Rafael Varane at Real Madrid, and also Pau Torres for Villarreal. One of those two players, I think it would be great to see them at Manchester United, and to just give Maguire another option to actually see if we can get a decent, strong centre-back pairing finally, because I don't know how much longer we can carry on just kind of crossing our fingers with Maguire and Lindelof that it seems to be kind of working. I mean, Rafael Varane would be an absolute dream signing, but we're going to have to wait and see, I think, what happens with Real Madrid, what happens with Sergio Ramos as well, with Real Madrid and all that type of stuff. But yeah, I think Rafael Varane or Pau Torres would be great.
That's the thing now. It kind of just opens up a new kind of worms, because obviously now they've got a new manager. Does that mean he's going to tell everybody, I want you all to stay for another season? Or do they all want to stay because it's another manager? I think I got the feeling that Zidane, as much of a world-class player he was, I don't feel like people liked him. I don't think the players actually liked him.
Oh, I think they did.
I just got that feeling that they've. I don't know. I just had this weird feeling that sometimes when I looked at him, he had players that a lot of managers have, you know, where they just really just love a group of players, and I think it's always hard. This is why I don't think Thierry Henry is ever going to be a good football manager, because I think he was so good that he can't look past people that can't do certain things. And I'm wondering if Zidane has a bit of that when it comes to midfielders, especially when midfielders, you've come from being the best midfielder in football, and then when you're seeing someone that can't play a 2-yard pass, it must be, even for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, watching, like you say, Martial, that must be heartbreaking for him to watch, that a striker that is, you don't know what you're going to get in front of goal, when, you know, really and truly, Man United should have a striker that in front of goal, you know what's going to happen every time. You know, you've had Van Nistelrooy, Wayne Rooney, Van Persie, and I don't think any of them are that close. And I honestly think Greenwood is probably going to be, I think he's the closest to a natural goal scorer that you've got. And obviously, like you're saying, Cavani he's just a beast, isn't he? And, you know, he's the old head that you need. And I think Greenwood is really learning off him. But again, like you're saying, when it comes to so many of these conversations that we're having, it's people just, I don't know, they treat it like it's FIFA or Football Manager, and they just think that you can just go and get whoever you want. You can get whichever manager you want. You can get whichever players you want. Life just doesn't even work like that anymore. And I think that's what we need to get past, that you don't have Ferguson. So if Ferguson was still there, you would have had Sancho last season. And I think that was probably down to, you know, the owners thinking, okay, we've got a manager that can win things. Do they trust Ole? I don't think they do. So they don't really want to back him, but they've got him enough in the last couple of seasons. But it's going to be interesting. And like you're saying, it's who do you get? None of us know. Like, you can spend how much million you want, but it doesn't automatically mean you're going to get the right player or the player's going to work in your team. So I'm saying I'm hoping it works out for him, but I don't really hope it works out for him. I hope it works out for you, because I don't want to see you be upset.
Yeah.
And before we finish, just quick on the England squad. You've seen it. Has anything surprised you? Because I know before we came on, we were saying that, you know, Rashford and probably Sterling are lucky to be in the squad. Obviously, we know what they can bring on their day, but when you go into a tournament, you want players that have played in a tournament, but you also want the players that are in form. And Watkins was in form. Calvert-Lewin obviously is in the squad. He's on form. Do you think some players have just been lucky enough because of they've got that name and who they play for?
I think potentially. I think if you're being brutally honest, Raheem Sterling and Marcus Rashford have not been on fire, especially the back end of this season, if we're being brutally honest. We saw it with Sterling in that Champions League final. Perfect opportunity for him. And for one reason or another, it didn't happen. Marcus Rashford, like I say, it's not been happening. I think maybe it's down to injuries. Who knows? I'm not going to make excuses, but he's not been 100% at his best. And that's no hate towards him at all, because we all love Marcus Rashford, but he's just not been 100%. And I know there were a lot of people kind of talking that maybe Rashford should sit this one out because he needs surgery. He needs to get himself right. And it's one of those, definitely. I feel like Jesse Lingard, I understand why people are upset that he wasn't in the squad, but also, as much as he is technically in form at the moment, prior to January of 2021, so from the summer of 2018 to Christmas of 2020, we've not seen sight and sound of him, if we're being brutally honest. So on the whole, from that World Cup, he just declined for whatever reason. I know he had personal things going on, etc., but on the pitch, things haven't been great. So do you sacrifice somebody for somebody else who's maybe just had 6 months of being all right, and you cannot necessarily trust that they're going to 100% bring it? He's not been included in that many squads recently over the last year, so I can kind of get where Southgate is coming with that.
Yeah, I would have put him in there. I just think it would have just been, okay, he's on form, but like you say, he's played 6 months of football.
But can he deliver? We don't know if he can deliver at the end of the day. Because delivering for West Ham, trying to get a spot in Europe versus delivering for England in the European Championships is a completely different ball game.
And he's the main man.
Yeah, and I guess that's maybe why Rashford and Sterling have been included, because they do have that experience with England, and I get why they were included. But I also feel like, it's just a shame that we're not going to see James Ward-Prowse in there as well. So, yeah, it's one or two have definitely missed out. It's a shame about
Henderson hasn't played football since February.
That's the other thing. But then again, he's one of these players that's got the experience, I guess. But it's a tough one.
I think it's just England. You've got to stick by one rule for me. You either pick the players that are in form, or you pick the players that you like. And I think it's just a bit too. You've got 4 right backs. Why you need 4 right backs?
That's the other thing.
I don't know. Yeah. And the thing, it was a tough one because obviously, like you say, you still got Wan-Bissaka that doesn't even get a look in. But it was a tough one because obviously
taking them all is a mistake, in my opinion.
Walker won the Premiership. James won the Champions League. Trippier won La Liga, and then you've got Trent. That I just don't think you can leave out. So it's just, again, you're never going to be happy, no matter who gets picked. Like, really and truly, we're always going to be sitting there thinking this player should have gone or this player should have gone. But like you said, the goal before we came on air, goalkeepers and defense is just what I'm worried about. I just don't think any are good enough, and I really like
our weaknesses for many years, and I think they will continue to be, unfortunately.
And then Maguire's our best, and he's not even fully fit, so it's going to be interesting. And I just hope for good football, and you're going to be out there. Hopefully, you get to enjoy it. Hopefully, you get to see some matches as well.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for joining me again today.
Thanks for having me.
If you want to be found, where can we find you?
You can find me obviously at OneFootball on their YouTube channel, doing all kinds of videos every other day pretty much. Socials, my name's Angelina Kelly, not that difficult, not that popular. So search me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, etc. Not Facebook because I won't accept you, but yeah.
Yeah, that's just a step too far.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody, anyone that's locked in, thank you for leaving all the comments. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel. And yeah, we've got the last one coming from Man United on Thursday with Kojo from Free Midfield. That one should be interesting because I'm sure he's going to have a completely different view to Angelina, because I saw something wild earlier, one of the statements that he made. So let's hope he brings that fire as well. And everybody enjoy your evenings, and let's hope England win the Euros, which I don't think they will, but it's just, we can pray.
Yeah.
We can pray.